Be good, baby. It's Kiana Brooks holding a baby. A heartbroken cry piercing the silence. 12-month-old Lily in a rain-soaked Seattle mansion, inconsolable since her mother's death, clinging to the young maid who soothed her with just a touch. But when Kiana discovers a shocking video that reveals Lily's true parentage, tech billionaire Dylan Carter's world is shattered, leading to a devastating betrayal that tears them apart. Can love and truth heal their broken relationship, or will secrets tear their fragile family apart forever? Tune in to find out. Don't miss a moment of this emotional journey. Subscribe to our channel for the latest compelling stories, and leave a comment below to share where you're watching. What's behind the video that Kiana found? And can Dylan make amends before it's too late? Watch till the end for a twist that will leave you speechless. The rain fell in relentless sheets over Seattle, cloaking the city in a silver veil that blurred the edges of its towering glass spires. Kiana Brooks, 22, clutched her worn canvas backpack as she stepped off the bus, her sneakers squelching against the slick pavement. The foster home she'd grown up in, a cramped, noisy haven of shared dreams and borrowed clothes, was a world away from the hilltop mansion looming before her. Its sleek, modern facade, all sharp angles and floor-to-ceiling windows, seemed to pierce the storm clouds themselves. Kiana had been hired as a temporary maid through a staffing agency, a one-day gig to scrub floors and vanish before the owner noticed. "Just keep your head down," her supervisor had warned. "Dylan Carter doesn't tolerate mistakes." Inside, the mansion was a cathedral of silence, its air cool and sterile, scented faintly with lemon polish. The marble foyer gleamed under a chandelier that cast prisms across the walls, but the grandeur felt hollow like a stage abandoned mid-performance. Kiana's footsteps echoed as she set down her cleaning supplies, her reflection flickering in the polished floor. A young black woman with tightly coiled hair pulled into a bun, her hazel eyes sharp with determination. She learned early to navigate spaces that weren't built for her, to shrink herself to fit. This job, though, was a lifeline. Every dollar earned brought her closer to her dream of nursing school, a chance to stitch together a life beyond the foster system's frayed edges. She began in the living room, wiping down glass surfaces that held no fingerprints, no trace of life. The furniture was pristine, angular, more art than comfort. A single-frame photo on a side table caught her eye, a radiant woman with chestnut hair, cradling a baby, her smile warm against the cold backdrop. Kiana's fingers paused on the frame, a pang of longing for a mother she'd never known twisting in her chest. She shook it off, refocusing. She wasn't here to pry. Then it came, a sound that sliced through the mansion's stillness like a blade. A child's cry, raw and desperate, echoed from somewhere above. Kiana froze, her rags suspended over a coffee table. It wasn't a hungry cry or a tired whimper. It was something deeper, a wail that carried grief too heavy for its tiny source. Her heart lurched. The agency had mentioned nothing about a child, only that the owner, a tech billionaire, valued privacy. "Stay in your assigned areas," they'd said. But the cry came again, louder, angrier, threading through the walls like a plea. Kiana's pulse quickened. She glanced at the staircase, its curved banister gleaming under recessed lights. She should ignore it, stick to her job, and avoid trouble. But the sound clawed at her, stirring memories of younger foster siblings crying in the night, of her own arms rocking them when no one else would. She set the rag down, her hands trembling slightly, and moved toward the stairs. Each step felt like a transgression, her sneakers soft but intrusive on the polished wood. The cries grew sharper, more frantic, guiding her to a half-open door at the end of a long hallway. She nudged the door wider, revealing a nursery that was both lavish and stark. A sleek crib sat beneath a minimalist mobile, its stars casting faint shadows on the pale walls. In the crib, a baby girl, perhaps a year old, writhed, her tiny fist balled, her face flushed crimson from screaming. Damp blonde curls clung to her forehead, and her blue eyes were glassy with exhaustion. The sight hit Kiana like a physical blow. She'd seen that kind of cry before, in children who felt abandoned, who'd lost something they couldn't name. "Hello?" Kiana called softly, her voice barely above a whisper, half hoping a nanny would appear. No one came. The baby's wails intensified, each one a shard of glass in Kiana's chest. She stepped closer, scanning the room. A bottle sat cold on a dresser, its nipple dry. A diaper pail overflowed, and a crumpled blanket lay discarded on the floor. The neglect wasn't cruel, but it was there, heavy in the air. "Be good, baby," Kiana murmured, the words slipping out instinctively, a phrase she'd used with her foster siblings. She leaned over the crib, her hands hesitating before gently lifting the girl. The baby was warm, her onesie damp with sweat, her cries hitching as Kiana cradled her against her shoulder. She began to hum, a low, lilting melody her foster mother had sung on rare, kind nights. The baby stiffened, then softened, her sobs slowing to shuddering breaths. Tiny fingers clutched Kiana's shirt, anchoring her like a lifeline. The silence that followed was so sudden, so profound, it felt like the room itself exhaled. Kiana swayed gently, her eyes fixed on the girl's face, now slackening toward peace. "There you go," she whispered, brushing a curl from the baby's cheek. She didn't notice the door creak wider, didn't hear the sharp intake of breath until a voice cut through the quiet. "Who are you?" Kiana startled, nearly losing her grip. A man stood in the doorway, tall and imposing, his tailored gray suit pristine despite the late hour. His dark hair was slicked back, his jaw was tight, and his green eyes blazed with a mix of suspicion and shock. Dylan Carter, she presumed, though he looked younger than she'd imagined. Mid-30s perhaps, but worn, as if grief had carved lines into his face. The baby stirred, her fingers tightening on Kiana's shirt, but she didn't cry. "I'm Kiana Brooks," she stammered, holding the girl closer. "From the cleaning agency." She was crying, sir. "I couldn't just—" "No one gave you permission to touch her," Dylan snapped, stepping forward. His voice was low, controlled, but it carried an edge that made Kiana's spine stiffen. She backed away instinctively, her heart pounding. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice steady despite the fear. She sounded hurt. "I didn't mean to overstep." Dylan's gaze flicked to the baby, then back to Kiana. His expression shifted, the anger softening into something else. Confusion, perhaps, or disbelief. The girl in Kiana's arms let out a quiet sigh, her head nestling against Kiana's collarbone, her breathing even. For the first time, Dylan seemed to notice the silence, the absence of the cries that had haunted his home for months. "How did you do that?" he asked, his tone quieter now, almost vulnerable. He took a step closer, his eyes searching Kiana's face as if she held some secret he needed to decode. "I just held her," Kiana said, unsure how to explain. "Sometimes that's enough." Dylan stared, his hands clenching at his sides. The air between them crackled, heavy with unspoken questions. Kiana felt exposed, out of place, yet the weight of the baby in her arms grounded her. She didn't know it then, but that moment, her touch, her voice, her defiance of rules, had cracked open a door in Dylan Carter's carefully guarded world, one that would soon change everything. The Seattle dawn broke gray and heavy, the rain a persistent murmur against the mansion's vast windows. Kiana Brooks stood in the staff quarters, a small room tucked at the back of Dylan Carter's estate, unpacking her meager belongings, a few worn shirts, a dog-eared nursing textbook, a photo of her foster siblings. The space was sparse but clean, with a single bed and a window overlooking the misty Puget Sound. She'd agreed to stay, not out of choice, but necessity. Dylan's offer the night before, triple her cleaning wage to care for his daughter, Lily, had been a lifeline she couldn't refuse. Nursing school wasn't cheap, and the foster system had taught her to seize what little the world offered. Yet as she tied her hair back, her stomach churned. She was no nanny, just a maid who'd held a crying baby. What if she failed? Downstairs, the mansion felt less like a tomb than it had yesterday, though its silence still pressed against her skin. Lily's cries had haunted Kiana's dreams, but so had Dylan's eyes. Green, piercing, flickering between suspicion and something softer, something she couldn't name. She pushed the thought away, slipping into the nursery where Lily lay in her crib, awake but quiet, her blue eyes wide and searching. "Be good, baby," Kiana whispered, lifting her gently. Lily's tiny hands reached for her face, a faint smile breaking through her tear-streaked cheeks. The connection was instant, a spark that warmed the sterile room. Kiana's morning was a blur of trial and error. She changed Lily's diaper with clumsy hands, warmed a bottle using the high-tech warmer, and sang off-key lullabies from her childhood. Lily didn't fuss. She watched Kiana with a trust that felt both precious and heavy. By noon, the nursery was alive with soft giggles as Kiana dangled a stuffed bunny above Lily's crib, mimicking its hops. The sound was a miracle in a house that had known only grief. Kiana didn't notice Dylan in the doorway, his suit jacket slung over one arm, his tie loosened. He'd meant to grab coffee before a board meeting, but Lily's laughter stopped him cold. He leaned against the frame, unseen, his chest tightening. His daughter hadn't laughed in months. "You're good with her," he said finally, his voice low but not unkind. Kiana startled, the bunny dropping into the crib. Lily giggled louder, oblivious. Kiana turned, her cheeks warm under Dylan's gaze. He looked different in the daylight, less like the billionaire CEO, more like a man carrying a weight he couldn't set down. His dark hair was slightly mussed, and faint shadows underlined his eyes. "I'm just trying," Kiana said, brushing a curl from Lily's forehead. "She's easy to love." Dylan stepped into the room, his polished shoes silent on the plush carpet. 3 nannies quit this month. Certified, experienced, the best money could buy. None of them could do what you did last night. His tone was matter-of-fact, but there was an edge of wonder, as if he were solving a puzzle that didn't add up. Kiana shifted, uneasy under his scrutiny. "I don't have their training, sir. I just know what it's like to need someone." The words slipped out before she could stop them, raw and unguarded. She braced for judgment, but Dylan's expression softened, his eyes lingering on Lily, now chewing the bunny's ear. "Call me Dylan," he said, surprising her. "And you're hired, temporarily until we find someone permanent. Triple the cleaning pay, room and board included. Deal?" Kiana's breath caught. The money could change everything. Nursing school, a future beyond scraping by. But the weight of his trust, of Lily's fragile peace, pressed against her. "Deal," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. The days that followed were a delicate dance. Kiana split her time between cleaning and caring for Lily, her hands learning the rhythm of bottles, diapers, and naps. She brought warmth to the nursery, hanging a makeshift mobile of paper stars she'd folded late at night. Lily thrived, her giggles filling the mansion's hollow corners. Kiana sang to her, old spirituals from her foster mother, pop tunes from the radio, her voice a soft tether in the quiet. "Be good, baby," she'd murmur, rocking Lily to sleep, unaware of how the words grounded them both. Dylan, consumed by his AI startup, was a ghost in his own home, his office door often closed, his phone buzzing with calls about algorithms and acquisitions. But Lily's laughter began to pull him out, like a siren's call he couldn't ignore. He'd linger in the hallway, watching Kiana play peekaboo, her worn sneakers squeaking on the floor. Her resilience intrigued him. Her hands, calloused from years of scrubbing, were gentle with Lily, her hazel eyes bright despite a life that had offered little kindness. She was an enigma in his world of polished surfaces and calculated risks. One afternoon, the rain eased to a drizzle, and Kiana bundled Lily in a tiny jacket for a walk in the mansion's garden. The air smelled of wet earth and cedar, the lawn a patchwork of puddles. Kiana pointed out a sparrow hopping on a stone path, her voice animated. "Look, baby, he's dancing!" Lily clapped, her hood slipping back, blonde curls catching the mist. Dylan, home early from a canceled meeting, watched from the terrace, his coffee forgotten. The sight stirred something buried, a memory of Sophia laughing in the rain, her warmth filling their old life. He stepped outside, drawn despite himself. "Mind if I join?" he asked, his voice tentative. Kiana looked up, surprised, her braids swinging as she nodded. Dylan fell into step beside her, his polished loafers splashing in puddles. Lily reached for him, and he took her, awkward but careful. Kiana smiled, pointing to a puddle reflecting the clouds. "She loves the sparkles," she said. Dylan chuckled, a rare sound, as Lily squealed at the ripples he made with his foot. For a moment, the three of them were just people. Not a billionaire, a maid, and a grieving child, but a fragile trio bound by a shared spark. As they returned to the mansion, Dylan glanced at Kiana, her face glowing with quiet joy. "You're changing her," he said, his voice low. "I didn't think that was possible." Kiana met his gaze, her heart skipping. "She's changing me too," she admitted, her words soft but heavy with truth. Dylan nodded, something unspoken passing between them. A flicker of connection, fragile but real, like the first green shoot breaking through winter soil. He handed Lily back, their fingers brushing briefly, and turned toward his office, the moment lingering like a question neither dared to ask. The Seattle mist hung low, weaving a gossamer shroud over Dylan Carter's mansion, its glass walls reflecting the city's muted glow. Inside, the air had begun to shift, as if the house itself were learning to breathe again. Kiana Brooks, now 3 weeks into her role as Lily's temporary caregiver, moved through the nursery with quiet confidence, her worn sneakers a soft counterpoint to the mansion's polished surfaces. The room, once a sterile shrine to grief, now hummed with life. Paper stars dangled from a handmade mobile, and a stack of picture books lay scattered on the rug. Lily, 12 months old, sat in her crib, her blonde curls bouncing as she clapped at Kiana's silly faces. "Be good, baby," Kiana cooed, lifting her. The girl's giggles a bright thread in the mansion's tapestry of silence. Kiana had crafted a rhythm for Lily, morning cuddles with a warm bottle, story time under the nursery skylight, and evening lullabies that lulled the girl into peaceful sleep. The inconsolable cries that had once torn through the house were rare now, replaced by squeals of delight when Kiana dangled a toy or sang an off-key pop tune. She'd learned Lily's quirks, her love for crinkly paper, her habit of tugging Kiana's braid when sleepy, and each discovery felt like a small victory. Yet beneath her growing ease, a current of doubt ran deep. She was no trained nanny, just a foster kid with dreams too big for her pockets. What if Dylan saw through her, realized she was out of her depth? Dylan, meanwhile, felt the mansion's transformation like a tide pulling him from shore. His AI startup demanded his days, endless calls, code reviews, investor pitches. But the nursery's warmth began to seep into his guarded world. He'd pause outside the door, listening to Kiana's voice, soft yet steady, weaving stories of talking rabbits or humming melodies he didn't recognize. Her presence was a paradox, a black woman from a world of struggle, moving through his sterile empire with a grace that unsettled him. She was nothing like Sophia, whose laughter had been a burst of sunlight. Yet Kiana's quiet strength stirred something in him, a flicker he both craved and feared. One evening, as rain tapped the windows, Kiana sat cross-legged on the nursery floor, Lily in her lap, a board book open. And the bear said, "Who's been eating my porridge?" Kiana growled playfully, tickling Lily's tummy. The girl squealed, her tiny hands grabbing Kiana's fingers. Dylan, home early after a stalled merger talk, leaned against the doorway, his tie undone, his heart catching at the scene. Sophia had read to Lily too, but those memories were shadowed by her sudden departure, her silence before her death. He cleared his throat, startling Kiana. "You're a natural," he said, stepping inside. His voice was low, almost hesitant, as if testing unfamiliar waters. Kiana flushed, closing the book. "Just keeping her happy," she said, brushing a curl from Lily's face. "She makes it easy." Dylan crouched beside them, his polished shoes incongruous on the rug. Lily reached for him, and he took her, his movements less awkward than before. "You've changed this place," he said, his eyes on Lily, but his words for Kiana. I didn't think I'd hear her laugh again. Kiana's chest tightened. His praise was a weight, a reminder of her precarious place. "She just needed someone to stay," she said softly, echoing her own unspoken longing from years in foster care. Dylan's gaze met hers, searching, and for a moment, the room felt too small, the air too thick. The next night after Lily's bedtime, Kiana lingered in the kitchen, washing bottles. Dylan appeared, his sleeves rolled up, a rare sight. "Tea?" he asked, holding up a kettle. She nodded, surprised, and they sat at the counter, steam curling between them. The silence was companionable, but Kiana felt his eyes, curious, probing. "How'd you learn to do this?" he asked. "With Lily, I mean. You're different." Kiana sipped her chamomile, the warmth grounding her. "Foster homes," she said, her voice steady but raw. You learn to read people fast, kids especially. They don't hide what they need. She paused, then added, I wanted to be a nurse to help people like that. Still do if I can ever afford it. Dylan leaned forward, his brow furrowing. You're saving for school? She nodded, bracing for pity, but he only looked impressed. That's not easy, he said. Sophia, she had dreams like that. Wanted to teach art, make the world softer. His voice caught, and Kiana saw the grief in his eyes, fresh as the day Sophia left. She sounds wonderful, Kiana said, her empathy instinctive. Dylan nodded, staring into his cup. She was, but she left, went to her mother's, and stopped talking to me. I thought it was my fault, something I did. Then she was gone. The words spilled out, unguarded, and Kiana listened, her heart aching for the man behind the billionaire's mask. Sometimes people leave because they're scared, she said gently, not because of you. Dylan looked up, his green eyes meeting her hazel ones, and something shifted, a thread of understanding weaving between them. Kiana broke the gaze, nervous, and laughed to lighten the mood. You're terrible at this tea thing, you know. It's like dishwater. Dylan blinked, then chuckled, the sound rusty but real. Guilty, he said, holding up his hands. Lily's soft coo from the baby monitor interrupted, and Kiana rose, but Dylan waved her back. I'll check, he said, surprising her again. He returned minutes later, Lily in his arms, sleepy but calm. She wanted her bunny, he said, sitting closer now. Lily nestled against him. Kiana watched him, the way his large hands cradled his daughter, tentative but tender. You're getting better at this, she said, smiling. She feels you trying. Dylan's lips quirked, but his eyes stayed on her, warm, searching. You make it look easy, he said, and the words felt like more than a compliment, like a bridge being built. As Kiana stood to rinse her cup, her braids swung, catching the light. Dylan's gaze followed, his heart stirring with a feeling he hadn't named since Sophia. A mix of admiration and longing, tinged with guilt. Kiana felt it too, a pull she pushed down, reminding herself of the gulf between them, his wealth, her struggle, his loss, her dreams. Be good, baby, she murmured under her breath, a mantra for Lily and herself, as she slipped from the kitchen, leaving Dylan in the soft glow, his thoughts a tangle of grief and something new, something alive. The Seattle night pressed against the mansion's glass walls, rain a soft percussion on the panes, as if the city itself were holding its breath. Inside, the air buzzed with a rare warmth, the kind that comes when a house, long dormant, begins to stir. Kiana Brooks, now a month into her role as Lily's caregiver, had woven a fragile magic into Dylan Carter's estate. The nursery glowed with her touch, paper stars swaying above the crib, a soft blanket draped over a rocking chair. In Lily's giggles, a melody that softened the mansion's edges. Yet tonight, Kiana's heart was a knot of nerves. Dylan had asked her to help with a small dinner party for his AI startup's inner circle, a task far beyond her usual duties. She'd agreed, though the weight of stepping into his world, polished, privileged, so unlike her own, made her palms sweat. The dining room was a vision of understated elegance, Kiana's doing. She'd arranged low candles along the mahogany table, their flames dancing in the dim light, and chosen a playlist of soft jazz that curled through the air like smoke. Sprigs of lavender from the garden scented the room, a nod to the foster mother who'd taught her to find beauty in small things. Kiana wore her usual black work dress, but she'd loosened her braid, letting her coils frame her face, a quiet rebellion against feeling invisible. She moved silently, refilling wine glasses and clearing plates, her hazel eyes catching glimpses of Dylan, sharp in a tailored blazer, his laughter tight, performative. His colleagues, all sleek suits and calculated smiles, spoke of algorithms and market shares, their world a universe away from hers. Lily slept upstairs, her monitor humming softly in Kiana's pocket, a reminder of why she stayed. Be good, baby, Kiana had whispered, kissing her forehead before the guests arrived. The girl's trust anchored her, but Dylan's presence tonight unsettled her. Since their kitchen talk, his glances lingered longer, his questions about her dreams sharper, as if he were peeling back her layers. She felt it too, a pull toward him, dangerous and unwise. He was a grieving widower, a billionaire, white. She was a black foster kid, a maid with nothing but ambition. The gap was a chasm, yet her heart raced when he looked her way. Dylan had retreated too, his office door often closed, his presence scarce. Kiana sensed his struggle, grief for Sophia, guilt over their moment by the fire. She buried her own feelings, reminding herself of the chasm between them, his wealth, her poverty, the color of her skin in his pristine world. She was here for Lily, not for impossible dreams. Yet as she dusted the living room, her mind replayed his eyes, raw and searching, and her own whispered admission, "I feel it too." That morning, with Dylan at a downtown meeting and Lily napping, Kiana was assigned to clean his study, a rare task as he guarded the space fiercely. The room was a fortress of minimalism, a sleek desk, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and a single-frame photo of Sophia, her smile haunting. Kiana worked quickly, wiping surfaces, her worn sneakers silent on the hardwood. She avoided the desk, sensing its sanctity, but as she straightened a shelf, a drawer slid open, revealing a sleek black tablet, its screen dull with dust. Her breath caught. She shouldn't touch it. Her job was to clean, not snoop. But curiosity, sharp and unbidden, tugged at her. Lily's soft coo came through the monitor, pulling Kiana to the nursery. She brought the girl to the study, setting her on a blanket with a toy bunny. "Be good, baby," she murmured, resuming her work. But Lily, ever curious, crawled to the desk, her tiny hand slapping the tablet's screen. A faint chime echoed, the device flickering to life. Kiana froze, her rag suspended. The screen displayed a video thumbnail, dated months before Sophia's death. Lily tapped again, and the video played. Sophia appeared pale and fragile in a hospital room, her chestnut hair limp, her eyes red-rimmed. "Dylan, if you're watching this, I'm gone," she said, her voice steady but brittle. "Lily isn't ours biologically. I couldn't have children, so I used a surrogate in secret. I went to my mother's because I was afraid you'd reject us if you knew." Kiana's hand flew to her mouth, her legs trembling. Sophia's words poured out, each one a stone. She'd hidden the truth, faked medical records, all to protect their family. "I loved you, Dylan. I loved Lily. Please forgive me." The video ended, the screen darkening. Kiana sat heavily on the floor, Lily babbling innocently beside her. The revelation burned. Lily, the child she'd soothed, wasn't Dylan's by blood. Sophia's departure, which Dylan blamed himself for, was a shield for her shame. Kiana's mind raced. She had no right to this secret, yet it explained Dylan's pain, his distance. Could knowing free him, or would it break him further? Her foster years had taught her that truth was a double-edged sword, but her heart urged her to act. "Be good, baby," she whispered, more to herself, scooping Lily up and clutching the tablet. Hours later, Dylan returned, his suit rumpled, his face drawn from a grueling meeting. Kiana waited in the living room, Lily asleep in her arms, the tablet on the coffee table like a ticking bomb. The fire from their last talk was cold now, the room stark under fluorescent lights. Dylan paused, sensing her tension. "Everything okay?" he asked, his voice cautious. Kiana's throat tightened. "I need to show you something," she said, her voice low but firm. She handed Lily to the housekeeper, who'd appeared silently, and picked up the tablet. "I found this in your study. I wasn't prying. Lily touched it, and it played." Dylan's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening as she explained. She pressed play, Sophia's face filling the screen. Kiana watched him, her heart pounding, as Sophia's confession unfolded. Dylan's face changed with each word. Shock, then pain, then a fury that turned his eyes to steel. When the video ended, he stood abruptly, the tablet clattering to the table. "You had no right," he said, his voice low, venomous. "This is my life, my wife, and you think you can dig through it like it's yours?" Kiana flinched but held her ground. "I thought you deserved to know," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "Sophia loved you. She was scared, not cruel. I thought it might help you heal." "Heal?" Dylan laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "You think you understand me? You're a maid, Kiana. You're here to clean and watch Lily, not play savior. His words cut deep, each one a lash. Kiana's eyes stung, but she refused to cry. I wasn't trying to hurt you, she said. I care about you. About Lily. Care, he spat, stepping closer, his anger a storm. You betrayed my trust. You think you're part of this family because Lily likes you? You're nothing to us. The lie in his voice was thin, but it struck like a blade. He turned away, his hands shaking. You're fired. Pack your things and leave by tonight. The guests departed just after 10, their voices fading into the rain-soaked night. Kiana began clearing the table, the clink of plates a grounding rhythm. The candles still burned, casting golden flickers across the room, and the jazz lingered, slow and soulful. She didn't hear Dylan return until his voice broke the quiet. Kiana, you outdid yourself tonight. He stood in the doorway, his blazer gone, his shirt sleeves rolled up, a glass of red wine in hand. His green eyes were softer, the edges of his grief blurred by the evening's warmth. She straightened, a plate in her hands. Just doing my job, she said, her voice light but guarded. Dylan stepped closer, setting his glass on the table. It was more than that. They noticed. The music, the flowers. You made this place feel alive. His words carried a weight that made her chest tighten. She turned to stack plates, hiding the flush creeping up her neck. Stay for a drink, he said, not a question but not a command. Kiana hesitated, the monitor silent in her pocket. She should check on Lily, keep the line clear between them. But his eyes held her, vulnerable, searching, and she nodded. He poured her a glass of wine, the liquid catching the candlelight like a ruby. They moved to the living room, where a fireplace crackled, its glow painting the walls in amber. Kiana sat on the edge of a leather sofa, her dress stark against its cream upholstery, while Dylan leaned against the mantel, the firelight carving shadows on his face. You're not like anyone I've met, he said after a sip, his voice low, deliberate. You see Lily, really see her. And this house, it's not a mausoleum anymore. Kiana's fingers tightened around her glass. His honesty disarmed her, but it also scared her. I'm just here for her, she said, her tone softer than she meant. She needs someone steady. Dylan set his glass down, crossing to sit beside her, close enough that she felt the warmth of his presence. It's not just Lily, he said, his eyes locked on hers. You're steady for me too. I didn't realize how much I needed that until you. The air thickened, the jazz a heartbeat in the silence. Kiana's pulse raced, her mind screaming to retreat, but her body stayed rooted, caught in the gravity of his gaze. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Sophia, she was my world. When she left, when she died, I thought I'd never feel anything again. But you, Kiana, you've brought me back. I'm falling for you. The confession hung between them, raw and reckless, a spark in a room of kindling. Kiana's breath hitched, her wine glass trembling in her hand. She felt it too, the way her heart leapt at his smile, the way his rare laughter warmed her. But the truth of their worlds crashed in, his wealth, her struggle, the ghost of Sophia, the color of her skin in his pristine life. She started, her voice cracking. I feel it too, Dylan. But this, us, it's impossible. She set her glass down, the clink sharp in the quiet. I'm a maid. I'm nobody in your world. And Lily, she's what matters. Her words were a shield, but they cut her as much as they protected. She stood, her braids swinging, and whispered, Be good, baby, to herself, a mantra against the ache in her chest. Dylan rose, his hand reaching out but stopping short. You're not nobody, he said, his voice fierce, almost pleading. You're everything to her, to me. The firelight caught the desperation in his eyes, but Kiana stepped back, her heart a storm of longing and fear. I need to check on Lily, she said, her excuse flimsy but necessary. She slipped from the room, her footsteps quick on the marble, leaving Dylan in the flickering glow, his confession echoing in the silence. The nursery was dark, Lily's soft breaths a balm. Kiana stood by the crib, her hands gripping the rail, tears pricking her eyes. She'd crossed a line tonight, not by his words but by her own admission. The mansion, once a cold fortress, now held a warmth that terrified her, a warmth that could burn if she let it. The Seattle dawn crept through the mansion's glass walls, its light muted by a persistent drizzle that blurred the city below. Kiana Brooks moved through the quiet, her heart a tangled knot since Dylan Carter's confession 2 nights ago. The memory of his words, "I'm falling for you," lingered like a bruise, tender and dangerous. She'd avoided him since, keeping to Lily's routine: morning bottles, story time, and soft lullabies in the nursery. Lily, now a radiant 12-month-old, was her anchor, her blue eyes bright with trust. "Be good, baby," Kiana whispered, tucking a blanket around her as she napped. But the mansion felt different now, its warmth laced with a tension that followed her like a shadow. Kiana stood frozen, the air sucked from the room. She wanted to fight, to explain, but his words echoed her deepest fears. She was nobody, an outsider who dared to dream. "Be good, baby," she whispered, a final shield, as she nodded silently. She wrote a brief letter. "I only wanted to help. I'm sorry," and left it on the table, her hand trembling. Dylan didn't look at her as she walked away, the mansion's silence swallowing her steps, the weight of his rage and her heartbreak a storm that would not soon pass. The Seattle night was a shroud of rain and shadow, the city's lights smudged through the bus window as Kiana Brooks pressed her forehead against the glass. Her small suitcase, stuffed with her few possessions, a nursing textbook, a faded photo of her foster siblings, sat wedged between her feet. The ache in her chest was a living thing, sharp and relentless, born of the words Dylan Carter had hurled hours ago. "You're nothing to us." The memory of Lily's soft weight in her arms, her trusting blue eyes cut deeper than his anger. Kiana's breath hitched, tears threatening, but she swallowed them. "Be good, baby," she whispered, a mantra for the child she'd left behind, and the heart she was trying to hold together. The bus lurched toward Tacoma, a city she barely knew, where a friend from the foster home had offered a couch and a waitressing job. The grayness of the journey mirrored her thoughts. Her nursing dreams, once a faint star, now felt like a cruel mirage. Dylan's rage had stripped her bare, his words echoing the taunts of her childhood. "You don't belong." As a black woman in his gleaming world, she dared to care, to cross lines, and now she paid the price. The letter she'd left, "I only wanted to help. I'm sorry," lay in pieces in his mansion, a futile plea. She closed her eyes, seeing Lily's curls, hearing her giggles, and the pain was a blade twisting. In Tacoma, the diner was a fluorescent box, its air thick with grease and coffee. Kiana tied on an apron the next day, her hands moving mechanically, pouring refills, wiping counters, forcing smiles for tips. The other waitresses whispered, sensing her distance, and a grizzled trucker, muttered about outsiders when she mixed up his order. The sting of rejection, of being seen as less, was a familiar wound, reopened by Dylan's dismissal. At night on her friend's lumpy couch, she lay awake, haunted by Lily's face. Had she eaten? Was she crying again, inconsolable as before? Kiana's fingers traced the air, mimicking the way she'd rocked her, and tears fell silently, soaking the pillow. Back in Seattle, Dylan's mansion had reverted to its old self, a cold, echoing shell. Lily's cries pierced the walls, sharper now, a raw grief that no bottle or toy could soothe. The first nanny, a stern woman with a resume of elite clients, lasted 2 days before storming out, muttering about that impossible child. The second, younger but equally credentialed, quit after a single night. Her eyes red from Lily's relentless wails. Dylan sat in his office, the glow of his laptop mocking his attempts to focus. His AI startup's latest pitch loomed, but Lily's sobs drowned out everything, a reminder of his failure. Not just as a father, but as a man who'd lashed out at the one person who'd brought them peace. He avoided the living room, where Kiana's letter had been, but late one night, sleepless and hollow, he wandered there. The coffee table was bare, the tablet gone, stored away to hide Sophia's confession. But in the trash, he found the torn pieces of Kiana's note, crumpled but legible. He pieced them together, his hands shaking as he read. "I only wanted to help. I'm sorry. Her words were a mirror, reflecting his cruelty. She hadn't pried for power. She'd cared, seen his pain, and tried to ease it. The truth of Sophia's secret, Lily's surrogate birth, paled against the truth of Kiana's heart, and he'd crushed it. Dylan sank onto the couch, the letter clutched in his fist. Guilt gnawed, but so did pride. He was Dylan Carter, tech titan, a man who controlled empires. Admitting he'd wronged a maid, a black woman from a world he'd never touched, challenged the walls he'd built. Yet Lily's cries, now a hoarse whimper from upstairs, were a verdict. He'd failed her by driving Kiana away. He called his assistant, demanding Kiana's contact details, but the agency refused, citing privacy. She's gone, they said. Moved on. The words were a punch, and Dylan's mind flashed to Kiana's hazel eyes, her quiet strength, the way she'd made Lily laugh. The next day, his lead partner, Richard, cornered him at the office. Focus, Dylan, he said, tossing a merger proposal on the desk. You're distracted. People are talking about your nanny obsession. The words stung, laced with a sneer that hinted at Kiana's race, her status. She's not a nanny, Dylan snapped, surprising himself. She was family. Richard's eyes narrowed. Family? She's a nobody. You want to tank your reputation over her? The warning was clear. Reconnecting with Kiana could cost him credibility in a world that valued image over truth. Dylan said nothing, but defiance stirred, a spark against the expectations that caged him. That night, alone in the nursery, Dylan held Lily as she cried, her small body trembling. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice breaking. The room felt empty without Kiana's paper stars, her soft songs. He opened his phone, searching for cleaning agencies in Tacoma, a desperate move. A friend in security offered a lead, a private investigator who could find her. Dylan hesitated, pride warring with need. Hiring an investigator felt like admitting defeat, but Lily's sobs were louder than his ego. He made the call, his voice low. Find Kiana Brooks. I don't care what it costs. In Tacoma, Kiana wiped a table at the diner, her apron stained, her dreams buried under the weight of survival. A customer's radio played a news clip about Dylan's startup, his name a jolt that brought Lily's face rushing back. She turned away, her heart heavy, unaware that in Seattle, a man who'd once called her nothing was beginning to see her as everything. The rain fell harder, and Kiana whispered, Be good, baby, into the night. A prayer for the child she'd lost and the hope she feared was gone forever. The Tacoma diner glowed under harsh fluorescence, its air thick with the scent of burnt coffee and frying bacon. Kiana Brooks, now 3 weeks removed from Dylan Carter's Seattle mansion, moved like a ghost through her waitressing shift, her apron stained, her hazel eyes dulled by exhaustion. The betrayal still stung. Dylan's words, "You're nothing to us," echoed in the quiet moments, a wound deepened by the whispers of customers who saw her as an outsider, a black woman who didn't belong. Lily's absence was a heavier ache, her giggles a memory Kiana clung to like a lifeline. Be good, baby, she murmured, wiping a table, the mantra a shield against the despair that threatened to swallow her nursing dreams. Outside, the rain had eased to a drizzle, the night sky a bruise over the city. Kiana was clearing a booth when the diner's bell jingled, a sound she barely registered until a familiar voice cut through the clatter. Kiana! She froze, her rags suspended, and turned. Dylan stood in the doorway, his dark coat damp, his green eyes red-rimmed with fatigue. In his arms, Lily, bundled in a tiny jacket, reached out, her blue eyes locking onto Kiana with a whimper. Kiana's heart lurched, torn between fury and longing. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice sharp, stepping behind the counter as if it could shield her. The diner's patrons glanced over, sensing drama, but Kiana kept her gaze on Dylan. He looked smaller, stripped of his billionaire armor, his shoulders slumped under an invisible weight. He set Lily in a high chair, her bunny toy clutched in her hands, and pulled a folded letter from his pocket, its edges worn. "I was wrong," he said, his voice low, breaking, "about everything. I watched Sophia's video again, had it verified. Lily's not mine biologically, but you were right. Sophia was scared, not cruel. I lashed out because I was afraid to face it. He slid the letter across the counter. This is for you. Please, read it. Kiana's hands trembled as she unfolded the paper. His handwriting was unsteady, raw. Kiana, I'm sorry. I called you nothing when you're everything. To Lily, to me. I was a coward, hiding behind anger. I love you and I need you. Not as a nanny, but as family. Come back. Her throat tightened, tears pricking her eyes. She looked at Lily, who cooed softly. Mama, her tiny hand reaching out. The words shattered Kiana's resolve. Memories of rocking her flooding back. You threw me out, she said, her voice shaking. You made me feel like I was less than nothing. I'm not going back to be hurt again. The diner's hum faded, the world narrowing to this moment. Dylan nodded, his face etched with regret. I know, he said. I don't deserve your trust. But Lily, she's not eating, not sleeping. She cries for you. And he paused, swallowing hard. I'm lost without you. Not as an employee, Kiana, as my partner. Marry me. The words hung in the air, reckless and raw, a vow that silenced the room. A waitress gasped, but Kiana barely noticed, her heart a storm of fear and hope. She stepped closer to Lily, lifting her from the high chair. The girl nuzzled her neck, her warmth a balm. Be good, baby, Kiana whispered, tears falling. She looked at Dylan, his eyes pleading, and saw the man who'd broken her, but also the one who'd come, letter in hand, to face his shame. Not for you, she said finally. For her. Dylan nodded, relief flooding his face, though her words held a challenge. Trust would be earned, not given. The drive back to Seattle was quiet, the rain a soft rhythm against the car. Kiana held Lily in the back seat, the girl asleep against her chest, while Dylan drove, his glances in the rearview mirror heavy with unspoken promises. The mansion loomed as they arrived, its glass walls no longer cold but waiting, as if it sensed her return. Kiana settled Lily in her crib, the nursery's paper stars swaying gently. Be good, baby, she murmured, kissing her forehead, her heart steadying. Days later, Dylan hosted a company gala, a glittering affair for his AI startup's investors. Kiana, no longer a maid, stood beside him in a simple emerald dress he'd insisted she choose. Whispers followed, about her, the nanny now on his arm, her blackness a stark contrast to the room's pale elite. Richard, his partner, pulled him aside, hissing, This is a mistake. She'll ruin your image. Dylan's jaw tightened, but he turned to the crowd, raising a glass. Kiana Brooks is my partner, he said, his voice clear, defiant. She's family, and she's why I'm here. The room stilled, then applauded, a reluctant acceptance. Kiana's eyes met his, a spark of pride cutting through her doubt. He kept his promise. Dylan enrolled Kiana in a nursing program, covering tuition. Her first class was a quiet triumph. At home, they rebuilt slowly, shared dinners, Lily's laughter, moments where their hands brushed and lingered. One evening, as Kiana studied in the living room, Dylan sat beside her, Lily asleep upstairs. I meant it, he said, his voice soft. I love you, not for what you do, but who you are. Kiana looked up, her textbook forgotten. Show me, she said, a challenge and a hope. He took her hand, his touch a vow, and she let it rest there, a fragile trust taking root. The mansion was no longer a mausoleum but a home, its walls echoing with Lily's coos and Kiana's soft songs. Be good, baby, Kiana whispered one night, rocking Lily, Dylan watching from the doorway. Their eyes met, and in that glance they saw it, a family forged not by blood, but by choice, by truth and love, a redemption hard-won and fiercely held. What did you think of Kiana and Dylan's journey through love, betrayal, and redemption? Did their story touch your heart or spark your own reflections? Share your thoughts in the comments below and let us know where you're tuning in from. Your support means the world to us, so thank you for joining us on this emotional ride. Don't forget to subscribe for more captivating stories that pull at your heartstrings. We can't wait to meet you again in our next tale. Until then, keep believing in second chances.